broadcasting from the Unshackled Studios in Melbourne. This is Wilmsfront, brought to you by the unshackled.net. Now here's Tim Wilms.
Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Wilmsfront. The date is Wednesday, the 29th of July 2020. It is 7:20 here in Melbourne. Apologies for the delay. Just getting all of the techs set up with my first guest, who I'll introduce in a moment. We are live as always on the Wilmsfront YouTube and DLive channels. We are nearly at the halfway mark of this second lockdown Melbourne and 1 week of masking up in Melbourne. The streets and parks are becoming emptier as Melburnians appear to be staying inside, as day after day Premier Dan Andrews through his daily press conferences now announces more new cases and deaths of coronavirus during this second wave. Up to this point, Premier Dan Andrews and the mainstream media have blamed so-called anti-maskers and COVID idiots, plus a complacent public, for Victoria's second coronavirus wave. But it's now becoming clear that it's been started off with the quarantine breaches at the hotel. Then we've had health professionals becoming infected. It's been revealed lax PPE standards at aged care facilities, outbreaks in essential workplaces such as meatworks and warehouses, plus various government failures through poor contact tracing that has now been spreading the virus throughout Melbourne and leading to the daily death toll. My first featured guest is Lance Simon, known on Facebook as Lucky Lance. He is host of the Warfare podcast, which features his commentary and interviews on true crime, combat sports, gym and music. During Melbourne's second wave and lockdown, the mainstream media have been hyping the fears about overwhelmed hospitals and ICU wards. Lance has copped a lot of hate for exposing that this is fake news. Since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, Lance has highlighted the costs of the lockdown on individual businesses and other health crises it is causing on the side. Lance is based here in Melbourne, and he is my guest tonight. Lance, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. That was a good intro, mate. You're good at this. Better than me.
Yeah, well, I like to think so after doing this for many years. As they say, practice makes perfect. Now, obviously, I introduced your Warfare podcast, which you began
Thanks, mate.
earlier this year, which obviously started with a different array of topics to what we're discussing tonight.
Yeah, the Warfare podcast is it's been heaps of fun meeting new people that I wouldn't usually speak to, rappers and people like that. And so it's just for a laugh, it's entertainment purposes, but we're hoping to cheekily sneak in some socially responsible messages in there as well, which we have, so that something positive comes out of it. But besides that, it's just a bit of fun, meet new people and see where it takes us. And I really enjoy it. That's the baby. It's a Warfare podcast. We're hoping it goes somewhere one day. And in terms of the videos on Facebook, it's a lot of fun, heaps of fun. And I've made a lot of friends and enemies, and I really enjoy it. But it's not something of great importance to me. You know, I don't know if you've seen my videos, but I'm pretty sure I'll be getting banned from Facebook in no time.
Well, I'm noticing a lot of I'm not sure if you've ever chatted to any of the 99% Unite admins and leaders, but they lost another Facebook group today, the 99 Worldwide Unite. They lost their main group. And when I say this, I'm not saying I approve of it, but I'm surprised Facebook has sort of taken this long to sort of act on these, or as they're calling them now, virus deniers. And with the mask mandate, they're calling them anti-maskers, and a more crude one they came up with was mask holes.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, so the message is getting lost. You know, there is I'm a corona skeptic, and there's a good reason to be skeptical. There's plenty of valid information out there that will lead you to be skeptical of the way the media are portraying it and the government reacting. But you see the anti-maskers and that, they're crazies, they're absolutely, they're nut jobs, and some of the things they're saying are ridiculous. And so it just, what do you call it? So then what's happening there, what I found is, so if I just preach some stats, I look up some stats off some reputable sites, world meters, things like that. And all I'm saying is, I'm not saying corona's a myth. I may sometimes use that terminology to illustrate my point, so I'm guilty of exaggerating a little bit. So, which is really ironic, because I criticise the media for exaggerating their story, and so that annoys me that the media exaggerate and manipulate and catastrophise their story. And then I found that I'm actually guilty of that myself. So I'm a bloody huge hypocrite there. But I'm trying to illustrate a point, and sometimes your words get a bit carried away with you when you're trying to illustrate a point. So what I'm not saying it's not a real thing and people aren't dying, and the biggest hit would be the economy. But if you look up, world meters and look up other types, statistics, and then you look at the deaths from corona, you'll become skeptical of why we're decimating the economy and small business with, when it's such low percentages of deaths and illness compared to so many other things, cancer, starvation. Starvation kills millions every year, and I won't go on, but it goes on and on and on. So I'm a skeptic, but then, so that gets lost because you got these nut jobs on the news, arguing with police, arguing with the staff at Bunnings about the mask and it's not lawful and whatnot. And so then you get thrown in the same barrel as these nut jobs, So I've seen some comments yesterday, people call me a tinfoil hat wearing person, and I thought, oh, that's hilarious. I just heard that. That is actually pretty funny. So I went and made a tinfoil hat and made a video, made fun of it,
Yeah, I saw that one. You were at Woolies there, which they are one of the retailers where if somebody comes in with a mask, they won't say anything. You run the risk of getting some greasy looks and maybe somebody making another customer making an abusive comment to you. But the reason why you saw those two ladies who are referred to as the Bunnings Karens go to Bunnings there is because they had a strict no masks, no entry policy, which of course was, when I first heard about it, I was sort of like, that's where the confrontations are going to be. And the staff at Bunnings, they shouldn't be expected to be police officers and enforce this. And there was a lot of, leading up to the face covering mandate, there was a lot of contradictory information on the Department of Health and Human Services website here in Victoria, but it's made clear now that shop assistants aren't expected to be police officers, neither are the supermarkets. If somebody is not wearing a mask inside the supermarket, the onus is on them. Yeah,
that's right. They're not police. But the thing is, Bunnings, as the people are saying, Bunnings is not a public place. Bunnings that's their business, and they don't have to have you in. They can kick you out for any reason. You know what I mean? It's their shop. It's not the lady saying it's a public place. It is not a public place. It's a Bunnings store. If you come into my bookstore and I don't want you there for any reason, whether it's fair or not, I don't have to have you there. So to complain to Bunnings, it's not the law. It's not the state library. It's their business, and they don't have to have anyone in there they don't want in there. No one has a right to be in Bunnings. You know what I mean? That's their store. So, and if their policy is to wear a mask, then that's their policy. And so they have a go at the staff and sit there preaching the law, which they don't understand anyway, either of them. A little bit ridiculous. At the same time, to the Bunnings staff, the world's gone a little bit crazy. We're in a pandemic, and you're going to cop a bit of flack from some crazies, and just take it on the chin. Don't let it get to you. And you're one of the lucky ones. You still got your job. Some people lost their jobs. You still got a job, and if you have to deal with a few Karens annoying you, just water off a duck's back. Don't let it get to you. That's what I'd say to the staff. Don't take it personally. You got some crazies out there, So, and it's good that you still got a job, So, it's a funny one. It's a funny one. I've seen a lot of people preaching that it's not lawful for the police to enforce enforce the mask and give you fines. So luckily I'm married to a lawyer. I asked her and she explained me the law. And yeah, surely is lawful. Definitely is lawful. Yeah.
Firm Guard Wilson Lawyers sponsors your show on the banners behind you there. So you are obviously versed in the law, and it comes from these powers. It comes from the Public Health and Wellbeing Act 2008, and even though
because we're in a state of emergency, it allows the government to enact laws.
But it does concern me that there has, well, since 2008, nobody is aware of it, that there has been these sweeping powers that a bureaucrat can direct, which can affect people's lives so much. So it may be lawful, but certainly that amount of power to shake up, well, the state of Victoria so much, that's still deeply concerning, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. To be honest, I'm not sure what to think about that myself. I'm not an academic, but I'm not too worried. But
I'm just thinking as a person who, as a Melburnian who was used to 6 months ago coming and going to my house as I please, you no questions asked, to, well, you're only allowed out now for 4 lawful reasons, and you have to wear a face covering unless you have a lawful exemption or reasonable excuse. That's a pretty huge change of life.
Yeah, a lot of people find that hard to adjust to, and that's understandable. You've gone, especially for law-abiding citizens, that have gone and played by the rules their whole life and not broken the law, the good people, and now, so they've done everything right the whole life, and now they're being told, you can't do this and you can't do that, and you've got all these additional rules. They're finding it hard to adjust to. And then people that, that don't follow the rules, that just do what they want when they want, those type of people, we're just laughing at it, because I'm out all night. I'm just living the same as I did before. I haven't made any changes in my lifestyle whatsoever. So to someone like me, it's not even real. But the people that abide by the rules, they're struggling. They have these additional rules forced on them, especially when they've gone their whole life being good people and doing the right thing, and then to have these restrictions, they're finding it hard. And that's human nature, I suppose. That's what you're going to get. That's going to happen. But it's not. Some people are really outraged. The mask. I mean, tradesmen wear those masks their whole career on a building site. So the government are asking people to wear them. I don't know if it's that. It's not so. What's the word? It's not traumatic. It's annoying.
Where it's excessive for me is the fact that you have to wear it when you're just walking or walking the dog. You're only allowed to not wear the mask if you're doing strenuous exercise like running or cycling. And I know that when I've left the house for exercise, just breathing the fresh air that helps me just as much as the actual walk itself. And in the whole stay at home, stay inside, and there's been a lot of talk about people not eating well during this lockdown. I've jokingly referred to lockdown love handles, and if we're becoming unhealthy at home, and this is supposed to be about public health, I mean, exercise because the gyms have been shut again, being outside in nature, the natural fresh air, the vitamin D from the sunlight, that helps build the immune system.
That's right. That's an interesting point. Yeah, that is an interesting point. I'll be honest. I've made videos of making fun of the mask, but I've kind of changed my tune a bit because I don't want to. I can see people are already, skeptical about the mask enough, and they're fighting it. So I don't really want to add fuel to that fire anymore. I can see it's going pretty crazy, but yeah, honestly, from my research, the corona particles are 500 times smaller than the holes in the mask. making the mask frivolous, although that the mask is will stop droplets getting it. But that's, I mean, how often have you coughed on someone's face and a piece of spit went on their face? How many times in your life has that happened to you?
Well, it's hard to. I have had people cough on me uncovered, but these droplets, you can't always see them. Obviously, when someone has a runny nose, and I won't get into the snorts hanging out, I'm getting a bit graphic here. That's clearly a droplet, but they're not always that obviously seen.
Small droplets, yeah, but you have to cough directly at somebody at their face, so I can't imagine that happens too often. So, the mask may or may not help. Maybe they're doing whatever they can, but I suspect, look, I don't really know. I don't think anyone really knows, but I suspect the government's motivation is that when the death toll rises, they don't want to be blamed for it, because the government's main prerogative is next election. And let's face it, they're worried about getting voted in the next election and doing and saying things and making decisions that will help them win the next election. So if the corona statistics go through the roof and lots of people die, they don't want to be to blame that they didn't put in enough safety measures. So they're thinking we put in lots and lots of measures so we can't be blamed later. You know what I mean? So that's people in power. They're worried about the backlash later for their decisions now. So if that means going above and beyond, or going over the top and doing things they don't need to save their skin later, then they'll do it, whether it's effective or not. Same with the judge in court. They don't like to give family violence offenders, they don't like to give him bail anymore, because if that person happens to kill his wife while on bail, that magistrate will be criticised in the papers for giving him bail. So people in positions of power are thinking about the future and how it's going to look. You know what I mean? So that's their motivations. You've got to think about that. So they might have no evidence that the mask will help, but it looks good that they put the measures in place, because they can say later, we made masks mandatory and we did all these measures to save everyone. And then if the numbers don't come down, well, they'll say it's because of the measures we put in place. So if there's success, they can attribute to the measures they put in place with the masks. You see, they've got a different motivation compared to just caring about our health and safety. They've got other motivations. They've got careers and elections to worry about. So it's fair enough to be sceptical if that's the case. I don't know. What do you think, Tim?
Well, I agree with your point there that they want to be seen to be doing as much as possible, which leads to absurd restrictions and you can see it with the first lockdown when golf, fishing and surfing, those recreational activities were banned, yet in the second lockdown they're not. And so far there's been no coronavirus cases traced to golf or surfing or fishing. But with you just went through the fact that the masks they certainly don't make you bulletproof against the coronavirus, but it's more just this symbolism of that. It looks like the government is taking an extra step, and we've seen since this stage 3 lockdown was reimposed on Greater Melbourne, the mainstream media asking Daniel Andrews every day, when are we going to stage 4? Shouldn't we go to stage 4 and that? And then when the mask mandate came in, face covering mandate, he said, it essentially is our stage 4. So he said that as basically a way to shut up the media, because Daniel Andrews already, by having the strictest and longest first lockdown, that decimated the Victorian economy immensely, and a stage 4 restriction where you shut, Bunnings, McDonald's, GB Hi-Fi, all those things, that would have an even more devastating effect on the economy, which he knows as well. But I've actually noticed with a side effect of this mask mandate is, I'm not sure if this was the intention. I don't think governments are this smart to be able to read human behavior, but people just they can't be bothered going outside anymore because they don't want to put the mask on. The streets are much more deserted now. The shops are as well.
Yeah, I don't wear the mask at all. People are worried they're going to get in trouble for not wearing the mask, but I'm out all day long. I'm at the shops. I'm everywhere. I don't wear a mask. I have one on me in case the shopkeeper has a go at me. I don't want to get in a fight with anyone. And but I'll have one in my pocket. Probably got one on me now. But here we go. I keep one on me just because I don't want to get into a fight with the public. So I have one. But I don't wear it in the police, so I don't know. I see police, they don't say anything to me. So it's look, you're not going to walk outside your house and police SWAT team are going to come and grab you. You can, but keep one on you in case you go to the shops and you have to put one on. But I've been getting around everywhere with no mask on, and no one said anything to me. At Bunnings, they insist I wear one at Bunnings, so I put it on, and. Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, it's a $200 fine, and if you're really a staunch anti-masker, I mean, you could. If you look up I printed out all the excuses. It was laughable. I think on the DHS website there's 2 pages of excuses that I printed out. And really funny ones too, like can't breathe properly and don't like it. It was pretty funny excuses. So yeah, it's pretty funny. Although you really wouldn't want to be sitting there arguing with the police, giving them a hard time. Probably not going to go well. Asthma. So I've heard people are going and getting asthma pumps, buying asthma pumps and keeping them on them so they can just show their asthma pump. Have you heard of that trick?
Yeah, I have heard of that, but it does it because obviously the $200 fine, it's significantly lower than the $1,652 fine for breaching the coronavirus restrictions. Works out to about 12% of that fine. But I'm finding it's more the people are wearing it socially for social reasons now. They just don't want to cop it from other people. It's not that they think that the police are going to be around the corner, but going back to the Karens from Bunnings, there are also the pro-mask Karens. I'm not sure if you've seen some of the footage of the United States where people are getting berated for not wearing a mask. Yeah. And the most ironic thing about that is the pro-mask people, they sometimes pull down their mask so they can give a spray to the anti-masker, and they're probably spreading droplets, and they're also breaching the social distancing themselves.
Oh, it's funny, man. This has been an interesting experience. This is something that'll go down in history. We'll be telling our grandkids about this. It's pretty funny how the human beings all reacted in all the different ways, like how you're suggesting. It's funny. It's very interesting to see the extremes. I've got a friend who's got a business. He's got a factory, and he's got a policy: no masks. He doesn't let anyone in with the mask, because he's against the mask so much, and it's hilarious, he's telling people, no, you're not wearing a mask, which is the complete opposite of the norm. I found that hilarious. He's telling people, no, leave your fucking mask in the car, fuck your mask, so that's pretty funny, but you see, there seems to be people that you're either extremist on one side or the other. I don't know who's in between.
That's certainly what we've seen more openly over in the US. We have seen a bit of it here with the mask mandate here in Melbourne, but nowhere near what you sort of see over in the US. But it certainly is legitimate to question how come during the first wave healthy people weren't recommended to wear a mask. Now suddenly it's a lifesaver. And I've noticed that when I'm out shopping, that the side effect of the people wearing the mask is they're not as conscious of the social distancing now, which actually look at the medical advice. Social distancing is the most effective, way more effective than masks. Yet people, and this is the annoying thing about it always gets filtered through the mainstream media. They've been trying to scare people shitless throughout this entire pandemic, and
tried and succeeded.
But even the communicating the new, when they communicate the new rules and medical advice to the public, the public get confused. I mean, for people think that this lockdown means you can't go to the next suburb to exercise. They think that's a breach of lockdown, even though Daniel Andrews said that no, that's the actual, what is it, state of emergency says unreasonable travel, and the examples that he's used is, what is it, traveling from Coburg to Rye to go fishing, which obviously that's quite a while from Coburg in the inner north to Rye on the Mornington Peninsula. That's not the next suburb.
Yeah, right. That's but you could drive from Coburg to Rye and go fishing. I mean, who's going to stop you? You know, just go there and go on the pier and fish with the other guys. There's no SWAT teams out there. You know, you could do that. It's no problem. And,
so if you do get pulled over, then it's and this is the other thing, that it's up to the police officer's discretion about whether you've engaged in unreasonable travel, which is what I haven't liked as well. Obviously, you know, the law.
It's a funny thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because it basically reverses the onus of proof. You have to prove to me why you're not in breach, which is that's not how what the foundations of our legal system is based on, where the state or prosecution has to prove beyond reasonable doubt that you've committed a offence or infringement.
Yeah, that's a funny one. Well, I mean, there's no other way to do it. They have to leave it up to the individual policeman's or policewoman's discretion, and hopefully they use their common sense. But they're human beings. They can make mistakes. I've been pulled over 4 times in breach of lockdown, and I haven't been fined yet. But what do you call it? But what I found is when you're just polite to the police and honest with them, but if you get confrontational with them and start reading them legislation and telling them some conspiracy theory that this is not lawful for you to enforce this and blah, 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 blah. So tell them that what they're doing is illegal. And, you know, the human beings, if you sit there and fuck with them, if you sit there and mess with them, they're not going to use their discretion in your favour, are they? So I've been pulled over. What are you doing? And I'm just sort of driving around making funny videos. Well, you're meant to be home. Yeah, I know. And they're like, all right, just go home. And so every time they just let me go home, you know. So I haven't been given the fine yet. But just be polite to them. Be honest. What are you doing? Nothing really. Got no excuse. And I'm not concerned with getting the fine. I haven't been fined to let me go. Yeah. So they've been real nice. So the cops that have pulled me over have been really nice to me. And I've been a bit nicer to them as well, because I know they're copping a lot of grief at the moment. You know, they pull people over and people sit there arguing, you know, you have no right and blah, blah, blah. So that's annoying for them. So I thought they don't need any more people to frustrate them. So I'll be polite, and they haven't given me the fine. So if there's any cops that watch this, that might change next time I get pulled over. But so far I've been pulled over, I think 4 or 5 times, and they've let me go. So and just told me just to head home. But you just be polite to them, be honest as well. Police love it when they love honesty. That's their drug of choice, honesty. So often they pull people over and people sit there making excuses, and they've heard every excuse, and it's disheartening to them to be lied. They get lied to a million times a day, you know, and so it's a breath of fresh air I've found in my experience when you tell a cop, like cop pulled me over the other night. I said, yeah, look, man, I'm in breach of lockdown. I've got no valid excuse. And they're so shocked that you say that to them. Usually they have to pry that out of you. They're so shocked, and then they're delighted, and then they use their discretion in your favour, and they cut you some slack, which is kind of nice. So yeah, it's funny how far niceness will get you, and manners will get you a long way.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear your encounters. Now, obviously, we've seen some of your trips around to the various hospitals around Melbourne, because this
Oh,
is
you saw that?
yes, and it stemmed from I'll bring it up again, the what is it, 7 News aired this footage from an ICU ward, which they didn't explicitly say but implied was in Victorian hospitals on
This is a
July
good example.
18th.
This is a sorry.
But that had been used by Sky News UK to say it was in an Italian hospital. Then CBS said it was a New York hospital. I don't know which hospital it actually is, but during that report, they said nurses were working 12-hour shifts, and the a few days before, they'd been busted. 7 News
Doing
Perth,
that.
the
Yeah.
dummies on ventilator. So you started with
Yeah,
Frankston
and I'm getting,
Hospital.
and now so it's okay for the mainstream media to do that disgusting type of manipulation of a story, and then I'm copping flack for actually going to the hospital, and I'm copping flack, oh, you're there at night, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that right. I'm like, I just fucking drove there on a whim, and they're all empty. Every hospital I go to is empty. So, oh, but I didn't go at the right time, and it's like, but hang on, but you believe the mainstream media who, I don't even know, what's a word to describe that? I mean, it's horrible, to use those images to influence
Sensationalism is what we call it.
Well, that's been nice. I mean, it's really dishonest. It's it's quite dishonest to put that picture in the background while you're telling a story, and you don't really focus on it too much when you, as a viewer, but that picture in the background will give you will make you think that the situation is worse than it is. So that's really lying to the public, manipulating. That's really, really dishonest. And then so I go out to the hospital and film it, and now everyone's saying I'm lying, and it's like, hang on a minute. So you believe these media channels that post what you just showed, and me actually going there on a whim, I'm being dishonest. It's like, geez, I tell you what, the mainstream media, they're clever, they're smart people, they're doing a great job. They're doing a really, really good job. They're doing manipulation and lying and catastrophizing stories like that, just dead set being dishonest, bad people, and they're doing a fucking great job, and everyone's believing it. So, they're very clever people. They're doing a real good job. Good for them. They're getting away with it, and it's working great. So they've achieved their goal.
Well, they're also desperate as well. Desperate for people to watch them because of people such as myself and the alternate media and the internet. They're losing lots of eyeballs and therefore revenue, and this is why they've wanted to scare people so much, is to get people watching them again. And obviously they're the ones who still have access to the Premier's press conferences and that, so they're always going to sort of run the government line as well. But since you've visited, I think you visited 3 hospitals now, you started getting a lot of threatening and abusive messages from so-called health professionals claiming that you've insulted them, and they've reported you to the, was it Corona Squad or something, and police will soon be in contact.
Yeah, I got a lot of threats to my children and all sorts of things. And so I don't get too upset about that. I mean, that's part of it. You put yourself out on the internet, you've got to take the good with the bad. And it's pretty confusing. I've had a lot of alleged healthcare workers, nurses contact me, lots and lots, and I'm getting mixed messages. So some nurses, and look, yeah, it could be anybody, but I suspect the people that claiming they're nurses are nurses because they're talking a lot of the lingo that only a healthcare worker would know. So I assume they're truthful. But anyway, so I've got a lot contacted by a few, and some are saying, no, you're wrong and you're being dishonest and we're busier than ever type of narrative. And then I got a lot also telling me, it's it is quiet, and the news are exaggerating. So I've got some nurses for me and against me, and I don't know what that means. So I've got nurses agreeing with me, and then I've got nurses disagreeing with me, and I really don't know what that means, So maybe depending on the hospital you're in, or depending on which section of the hospital you work at, would depend on whether they're working more or less, whether they've got more work on or less work on. So some nurses apparently have been taking their annual leave because it's quiet, no elective surgery. But I went to 1, 2, 3, 4. I went to another one in Frankston. I went to one that was so empty I didn't even bother filming, but it was a private hospital, so I thought I'll cop flack for that. Went to a couple of private hospitals. I didn't bother to film because I realised people would cop a lot of flack. But every hospital I've been to, it's been extremely quiet. But the one was that stood out the most was the Alfred. Now the Alfred is usually on a weekend. In my experience, is usually very busy in emergency because you've got Chapel Street down there, and you've got people assault victims from the clubs and pubs and drug overdoses and alcohol poisoning. So whenever I've been there on a Saturday or Sunday night, it's usually very busy. And because the pubs and clubs are closed, so I went there, and I've never seen it that quiet in my whole life, I just thought, I didn't go to ICU. I don't know how many people were in ICU there with COVID.
Well,
so I'm not saying that, but it's just interesting that the news are saying that they're under the pump and showing footage of what you just showed me. And then when you actually drive there yourself, it's never been so quiet. So I'm just wanted to illustrate that point because no one else is, So I thought it's important to show the different perspective, the other side of it.
Well, if you look at today's numbers from the DHS website, so 307 cases of coronavirus are in hospital and 41 are in intensive care. The intensive care has actually gone down, I think, from yesterday. It was 42 yesterday. This is going by the Department of Health website, which is a day behind. But the reason why it went over 300 coronavirus cases being admitted to hospital is because they've moved some of the aged care residents, which that is the genuine heartbreaking thing about this second wave, that it's gone into the aged care facilities, and the failures that have already been revealed about PPE not being worn up until or being compulsory until very recently. That's why the hospital cases 307 today. But it's and if we have a look here, that there's just under, if we go here, 4,839 active cases, which is actually down from the 4,995 active cases the day before. So people are recovering, but the number linked to aged care keeps going up, 804. And the total number of healthcare workers that have been infected as well is 502. So it's clear that this sort of hectoring and lecturing that Dan Andrews has done of tutting Victorians not doing the right thing. It's clear that Victorians are. It seems that it's now the aged care facilities and the various aspects of the health system. It's now up to them to make sure that people who've got the coronavirus and they're in charge of quarantining, that they're not spreading the virus as well, especially to the most vulnerable. That seems to be I would say the ball is in their court now.
Yeah, the aged care facilities, that's a tough one, because the elderly are the most vulnerable to the COVID-19, so they're vulnerable. Old people and people with weakened immune systems are vulnerable, and so I don't know what else they could have done. It's not for me to judge the government, I suppose, on that. I don't know. And actually, my mother works in aged care, and she's been working mostly from home over the computer. But no, I'm not sure what they should be doing there. And old people are vulnerable, but and people with weakened immune system. But those same old people, I'll take a risk saying this, but had they got pneumonia or the flu or a lot of other things, would also die. And what country was it where they just locked down the elderly? They just locked down the elderly and people with asthma and let the rest of the country go about their business. That seemed like a pretty clever move, just to lock down the vulnerable.
Well, Sweden is the model where they didn't lock down their economy and businesses, and even though they had a higher death rate at the beginning, their death curve has continued to go down. If you keep Australia's coronavirus tally in perspective, we're 132nd in the world when it comes to deaths per 1 million population. So we're still doing pretty good. Obviously, every death is still a tragedy. And what breaks my heart about the aged care deaths, because the aged care homes are supposedly have stricter lockdown, that it's meant that a lot of families haven't been able to say goodbye to their loved ones, and that there's reports come out of that St. Basil's ones that some family haven't even been informed that their loved ones are close to death, and we still have the restrictions on limits on funerals to 10 people as well. So you'd say it's even a triple whammy if you lose a relative in aged care at this time.
Yeah, that's really sad. That is really sad. And it's sad, but it is what it is. We're in the middle of a virus that kills old people, and it's nothing new at aged care facilities. You go to any aged care facility, they've got hearses turning up there on a regular basis. People are in there not when they're young, fit, and healthy. People are in there when they're getting towards the end. And I'll take a risk saying that too. So, and when I say the old people that die from corona also would have died from the flu or pneumonia, a lot of other things. People are really upset about that. How dare you? What was your grandmother?
Well, we had 900 Australians die from the flu last winter. That it was a literal killer flu season. We've had, 36 deaths from the flu this winter as well. So overall, we're clearly, if you combine flu deaths with coronavirus deaths, well and truly under that 900 figure. But then have we caused more deaths elsewhere through suicides, or a lot of people have talked about domestic violence during this time, because there's a lot of people who have either been stood down, lost their jobs, businesses gone to the wall, and also the fact just isolation as well, being away from legally having to be away from friends and family. That's not good for people as well, and no amount of mental health funding will sort of rectify that at this time.
Isn't it really interesting, Tim? That's really interesting. People that are really hysterical about corona, people that are fanatics about corona, really, really think it's the worst thing ever. They can't remember, Ebola and Spanish flu. They don't know about them, or they don't remember. But the people that are really fanatical, they must have no idea of the death rate of every other cause of death in Australia. They just mustn't have a clue, because if you were aware of all the other deaths, especially at the same time, you might not be as hysterical about the deaths from corona, And then and then when you're on the internet, if people are preaching about the deaths from the corona, and you mention the deaths from the flu or car accidents or suicide, if you mention that, you straight away get bashed that you're being skeptical of corona, and you get attacked online by a lot of people, and a lot of people agree with you, but a lot of people attack you. So there's people that attack you when you just merely, be polite, merely bring up alternative statistics, and not alternative statistics, but just other statistics of other causes of death. if you just bring them up, you're bashed for you called it tinfoil hat wearing.
Or uncaring.
Uncaring, and it's like, well, that's not very smart. Let's, have your opinion, but be aware of all the facts and all the deaths and put it into perspective. Let's all put it into perspective and be reasonable people. And the media don't help this. The media don't help this because if the media, when they put their report of how many people died of corona this week, how they put a chart of every death, of every cause, let people put it into perspective. And, we'll still take corona seriously, but just be aware that some people think that the only thing you can die from in this day and age is corona. Some people sort of believe something along the lines of what I just said. So it's pretty funny. It's just very strange to me, But I suppose with the media, they don't want to be complacent also, So if they were to, when they put the deaths from corona this week, if they also listed on their screen every other death from cancer, the flu, car accident, suicide, if they charted it all, people would see that chart, and then because the average person is a bit. No, I don't want to. You know what I'm saying? So the average person is easily influenced. So we just put the corona deaths right. They're freaking out about corona. At the same time, if we put in a chart with all the deaths from corona, then every other cause, every other death, people would then probably be very complacent about corona once so some dumb people would be like, oh, what are we worried about? It's only 2% of all the deaths. No big deal. And then those people would be complacent and stop wearing their masks and stop distancing and not give a shit. So I suppose the media don't want to be too honest because the people watching are so stupid will then be complacent and not take corona seriously. And they want you to take it seriously and everyone protect themselves.
You're implying that the media is trying to be responsible.
Yeah, that's pretty weird what I've just said. But you see what, you catch my drift?
I do, but this is why I always compare the coronavirus to the flu. I know that they're not the same, and when I say it's just like the flu, I'm not diminishing it. But there are the reason why we probably had a killer flu season last year is because people probably were getting lax with hygiene and that, not washing hands constantly and maybe coughing and then shaking hands with people, which you wouldn't do that now. So there are good habits that people have picked up during this pandemic, which will just keep them healthier. Period. But I would disagree that when this is over, people are just suddenly going to disregard it, because Melburnians, we're halfway tomorrow. We're still around about the 300 active case mark. A lot of people are wondering whether the lockdown is going to be extended. How long can we live like this? Do we need to consider that we're just going to have to live with the virus and better manage outbreaks? We see today that Queensland, they shut their border with Greater Sydney-siders. The media's been hyping up their apparent second wave. All their cases have still been in the teens today. So their second wave is a massive media beat up there. So you've sort of got to, how long is this going to go on for? Because let's talk about suppression and elimination. To eliminate the virus, you'd have to keep basically the world locked up forever.
Yeah, that's right. And then you would have read about talk of herd immunity is another option. Without the lockdowns, and we may all gain an immunity. And I don't know. The government doesn't know what the answers are. I don't know what the answers are. And but I'll call out things that I see that are that make sense. It's call me a skeptic if you like. And it is really. It's interesting times.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
When we do eventually, because when we get to Melbourne spring and summer, well, that fries the seasonal flu. It will likely fry the coronavirus down to very manageable levels, but we do need to have a conversation about, because there are going to be new viruses, just what approach is the best, because none of us want to go through just the trauma of the lockdown itself again.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, what's your thoughts? I wanted to ask you, what's your thoughts? So the flu kills a lot of people every year consistently. I think, what is it, 3,000 a year the flu kills? And is that right?
Are you talking about
The seasonal flu.
Seasonal flu. I know that it was 900 in Australia last year. The worst it's been in Australia was the winter of 2017. That was 1,100 who died from the flu then.
1,100. So, and now, so the deaths from the flu rate has dropped. So I see a lot of people online saying that they're, stealing the figures, putting deaths from the flu as corona. So I heard that accusation a lot online. I don't have a clue if that's true or not. I couldn't imagine. Well, I mean, I can't imagine what motivation the doctors in Melbourne hospitals would have to do that. But I don't know. But it could be that so I think you were alluding to that. Could be that the death from the flu rate is down because people are staying home and wearing masks and
just washing their hands and sanitizing it, just not being as sloppy as they were last winter with the flu season. Last year, not one person would have put any measures in place to avoid getting the flu, would they? No.
Yeah. So we could have less. Yeah. So that might explain why we've got less deaths from the flu. That's the most logical answer. But so, with the flu killing that many, how come we never had any measures like this in place for the flu season?
Because the flu is with us every winter. The reason why there was all this hysteria when the coronavirus was peaking at the end of March is because we still didn't know a lot about the virus, because it was born in Wuhan, China, and most of us know not to trust that regime and what comes out of it, because it was a new virus from a secretive part of the world. We didn't know how much damage it could do, and we always fear what we do not know. And we didn't know back in March whether it was going to. This is why the initial lockdown was implemented, to flatten the curve, just so it wouldn't spiral out of control and our hospitals and ICU wards weren't going to be overwhelmed, which has not happened at all. So that's why we reacted the way that we did, and that's why there were all those panic buying over toilet paper and all that other stuff, because there were so many unknowns.
Yeah, the panic buying was funny. That was a funny one. I made a viral video in Safeway, and got taken down though. Got taken down because I was making fun of people for buying the toilet paper, and that got taken down. But what do you call it? It's pretty funny. So I've been reading, and apparently there's a bioweapons facility in Wuhan.
Yes, that's been well established.
And so I keep saying apparently because I know people are gonna question me and diss everything I say, so I'm trying to sit on the fence. But yeah, so apparently Bill Gates is heavily invested in the bioweapons facility in Wuhan.
I don't know about Bill Gates having a stake in that, but I do know that there was a bioweapons facility just outside of Wuhan.
Yeah, apparently he's a large stakeholder in that, as well as this other guy Fauci. But look it up, see what you'll be better at researching than me. But and apparently he had a patent on the vaccine in March, which is quite. Look that up. So if he had a patent on the vaccine in March, I don't know, it raises a few questions. And what's your thoughts?
Well, there is the evidence is now emerging of an effective treatment for coronavirus, hydroxychloride, which, because Trump has talked it up and admitted he's been taking it himself, the media with their Trump derangement syndrome, they've done all they can to suppress news and medical information about its benefits. I'm not sure if you saw that these doctors, what is that? America's Frontline Doctors, they held a press conference outside Washington, D.C., talking about hydroxychloroquine. That's been censored by Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It's been deleted massively because it promoted it as a cure, which this is why I call it a treatment, because what is a cure? You would say it's a treatment, but they've demonized these doctors as much as they can. This was shared on social media. The credentials of these doctors at the press conference: Simone Gold, MD, Dr. Bob Hamilton. This is the one they've really gone after, Dr. Stella Emanuel. She went to medical school in Nigeria. She's the one who used the word cure for hydroxychloride. They're also attacking her because she's quite religious and has talked about demons and witches before. That doesn't mean that she's not good at medicine. Then Dr. Dan Erickson, he's the one who did the initial video questioning the social distancing and lockdown. Dr. James Tordo and Dr. Joe Ladpo. And this is the thing: the sort of the corona, or you say pro-corona crazies. They say listen to the experts, listen to the doctors. These are doctors, but they don't want to hear about that, and social media censors them.
Yeah, well, I shared the. Did you see the roundtable on London Real, 100 doctors?
No.
That one, Tim?
No.
Well, I just shared the link for that because I watched it. I thought that's interesting. There were 100 doctors at once on a roundtable on London Real, and so London Real, you know what that is? You know, it's a different internet, so it can't be censored and stuff. So it's not.
Yeah, it does come to mind now. Yes.
Yeah, London Real. So there's 100 doctors all at once on a roundtable, and the information they were giving is opposing to what you see in the mainstream. So I thought that's interesting, you know, and I try to be open-minded and not just believe anything. But it was interesting, and so I just shared it to Facebook, but it got taken straight down. Mm-hmm. I thought, really, you're really only allowed to run. You're not really allowed to run a different narrative. And I suppose I don't want people, because there's some really stupid people in society, and they'll grab hold of that with all dear life, seeing some doctors, you know, questioning the coronavirus and the response and the severity of it, and then the real dumb people grab hold of that and now turn that into corona's a complete myth and it doesn't exist.
Well,
you know?
With the hydroxychloroquine, the media were, concerned that that it's going to cause people to OD on it. There was only 2 people who died from a hydroxychloroquine OD, and that's because they drank fish cleaner, which is incredibly stupid. But and nobody, to my knowledge, when Trump talked about the injecting a disinfectant into the skin as a treatment, he was sort of thinking out loud to one of the doctors there. Nobody tried that. So for all of the hysteria about Trump's medical information, there was only those 2 people who drank fish cleaners, which...
I think he might be onto something. See, I've been treating corona patients myself at home. So I noticed everyone using their hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer, big seller. People are making a lot of money from selling hand sanitizer.
Don't even make a joke about this, because you could get the stream taken down.
Well, if the hand sanitizer kills, or you can't edit this. If the hand sanitizer
this is live. This is live.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. I'll put it in a way that won't get you banned. If the hand sanitizer kills the virus on your hands, right? Which is, we assume I assume that's why people are putting the hand sanitizer in their hands to kill the virus. I mean,
Kills the drop if there's any droplets on your hands. Yes.
So it kills the virus. If the virus is on your hands, the hand sanitizer will kill the virus. Now, if I'm diagnosed with the virus, why wouldn't I just drink the hand sanitizer?
Because that's only for getting rid of droplets. That's why.
Well, it kills the droplets?
On your skin. On your skin. Doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything else. It's only for your skin.
But what if I've got the coronavirus inside my body? If the hand sanitizer can kill the droplets on my hand, can't it kill the virus in my body as well?
Oh, I see what you're doing now. So you're sort of saying that because hand sanitizer has been so heavily promoted, then how come people aren't taking that literal next step? And that's because people.
Tim, I actually don't know what I'm saying. I really don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying if it kills the droplets on your hand, why wouldn't it kill it in your body?
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't.
You sure, Tim?
Yes, sure. Yes. Yeah, but you would seriously not recommend people do that.
No, I wouldn't. No,
yeah, me either.
Not on your show. Maybe on my Facebook I might.
Okay.
Not on your show.
Yeah, well, even if you do say that on your Facebook page, we'll still see how long you survive on Facebook. It's been good chatting with you.
I love it. Thanks very much. Thanks for your time.
You sharing your thoughts as well, and we'll see whether we can get out of this second wave and this second lockdown, because I certainly want my own life back, and I know many other people want their lives back as well.
Thank you very much, Shay. Thanks, Tim. I hope you stay in touch. And it was really nice to meet you. You're a pretty smart guy. I think I could learn a lot from you. So I hope you'll stay in contact with me.
Yeah.
After this.
We'll definitely do, and I encourage people to tune into your podcast as well. Warfare podcast and Lucky Lance on Facebook as well.
Thanks a lot, Tim.
All right, take care.
All right, see you, mate.
All right, that concludes my first featured guest for tonight. Now it's the transition to the second featured guest. She is in the waiting room. I will bring her in now. This is as you all know, I'm doing the weekly show this week, so I've got to do the transition to the second guest, where there's a bit of sort of awkwardness between here. So Josephine, are you there? I think she's still connecting to audio there. But while I'm waiting for her for audio and video to show up here, you would have seen yesterday that the Sydney Black Lives Matter rally, which was organised by Trotskyist Marxist Paddy Gibson of Solidarity. His rally was deemed unlawful by both New South Wales Supreme Court and Court of Appeal. Paddy Gibson was arrested at the rally. 4,000 people said they were going to attend. Only 20 ended up showing up here. And as this meme said, Paddy Gibson ended up in the back of the paddy wagon here. Josephine, can you hear me?
Yeah, very loud and clear.
Excellent. So I'd like to introduce my audience to Josephine Cashman, who's worked in Aboriginal affairs and welfare for many years, including sitting on government advisory panels, but her dissenting views with the Aboriginal grievance industry, as they are known, particularly speaking out about Bruce Pascoe's rewriting of ancient Aboriginal history with his Dark Emu book, has seen the activists and media do their best to destroy her career and assassinate her character, but she has been undeterred. You may have seen her on the Bolt Report and Chris Smith and friends. She's been part of what would you call it, a local campaign to urge regular Aboriginal people to resist the agenda and lure of Black Lives Matter. I think what is it, you could call it BLM exit.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because I was talking to one of them who's exited, call him a young fellow, but it's around my age. But anyway, and he's calling it ALM. He said all lives matter. So they think they're going from BLM to ALM.
And of course, with the BLM 2.0, as I refer to it, which was triggered by the death of African-American man George Floyd at after an encounter with the Minneapolis Police Department, with that officer putting the knee on the throat. And we saw a Black Lives Matter 2.0 where we saw riots and destruction in the US, it being imported into Australia, which I think it was Tim Blair who first correctly pointed out, aren't these type of activists, aren't they against the Americanization of our culture, yet they're importing a movement from the US and also applying it to a different race and a separate set of local grievances.
Well, yes, and unfortunately for Australians and original Aussies, as we'll call them, the Marxists, this is a realisation for me really, Marxism and the communists have actually infiltrated Aboriginal affairs and controlled it for the last 43 years. And I think, although I think, as you've rightly pointed out in some of your articles, there is not the majority are Aboriginal. The majority, and as I've found out from the BLM exit person I spoke to recently, are actually well-to-do university students. And they do, unfortunately, probably a lot of them are brainwashed and they've got an agenda.
I think it was on clear display with the rioting and looting that was occurring in the US after George Floyd's death. It didn't matter to them that they were destroying black-owned businesses or people who were on their side, and they even murdered a retired black police chief. And this is what I was saying to people: it's not about a promoting Black Lives Matter message. It's about a communist agenda, and the Black Lives Matter leadership indirectly were teaming up with, as I call them, their white counterpart, Antifa, which is they're the ones who've been setting Portland ablaze for many nights now, and also set up Chaz, that autonomous, or CHOP, what it was, autonomous area in Seattle as well. So you're absolutely right, and I know that you've been on a journey of the discovery. At its root, these a identitarian Black Lives Matter movements, racial grievance industries, at the root, it's promoting a communist agenda.
Well, yeah, and where their weaknesses are, which is very interesting. One, I mean, I was telling you when I spoke to you before, I left an Aboriginal community on the far south coast of New South Wales, and I'd actually lived on the Aboriginal community, which was the first annexed Aboriginal reserve in 1890. And when I was there, it was very hard to get the police to come to the community. And at this time, believe it or not, I mean, this was 20 years ago, but houses were being firebombed and we couldn't get the police in. And I think, you know, the Aboriginal liaison officer organised a fight between people when really statements should have been taken. And then I figured out, hey, most of these people, unfortunately, have been abused as children, and a lot of good people too. But for me, it was very clear in my early 20s that there was a double standard in the application of law. So I practically spent the last 20 years trying to improve access to justice and the law and order to be applied. So really, Black Lives Matter is poles apart from what the real issues are here. The real issues are, at the moment, it's actually law and order. And when there's been a Crime Commission report, which took 8 years to complete, John Howard commissioned it, and it clearly says that abuse of power, which appears to me to be a common thread with these cabal communist sort of infiltrators, abuse of power and organised crime have absolutely infiltrated these communities. But the problem is, as you may find out, and we will, I'm sure, because we're uncovering them, many of these people who have the decision making, both in terms of government and in the community, aren't Aboriginal, and it's completely disconnected to the ground. So the great news is for Australia, and I think it's reflected in the low numbers, that Aboriginal people aren't stupid, but they haven't had a voice. And the people who are up there do not represent them. They've been told, like I've spoke to ones who are actually brainwashed, and they go on about sovereignty and all this and that. It doesn't take long to unpick it, because they actually don't, they're more conservative in nature, and actually these people don't understand them. They haven't bothered, and they're real snobs.
Though when you get into sort of a questioning whether some of these activists are Aboriginal, it brings up memories of the Bolt decision. Well, was it 8 or 9 years ago now, when he wrote that column, it's hip to be black, and he was taken to court by a coalition of those in the Aboriginal industry, and he lost that case in the federal court, breaching 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act, which has had quite a chilling effect on that sort of on those sorts of discussions which you just raised there.
So I was on Tony Abbott's Prime Minister's Advisory Council. He launched a book of a victim when I was a prosecutor called Lani's Story. We got one of the highest convictions for a living victim of brutal attack by her partner, right? But the police didn't actually execute the warrant for him for 4.5 years. And he was in and out of jail 44 times. He was arrested 44 times within that period for offences like having a shorn-off shotgun. And the police didn't execute the warrant for the sexual assault. So these places can become sort of where people they give up on democracy because it's not protecting them. So back to your, I might need you to just remind me of your question. I'm sorry, I sort of got caught in that train of thought. But
I'll move on to you're mentioning the.
I just forgot what it was because I got too caught up in answering you.
Yep. So you talk about the law not being applied equally in Aboriginal communities or areas of high Aboriginal population, where some of the where there is crime that needs to be investigated and justice needs to be served. You see over in the US where it's only with this whole defund the police movement, and Minneapolis where George Floyd died, with the city council vowing to disband the police, you've seen a rise in crime, and so you see with this demonization of the police, whether it's for racially charged reasons or because of racism accusations, it's you betray the victims of crime and also create more victims of crime as well.
Definitely, and it becomes people give up on democracy. But back to you, now I know what I was going to say. Back to your point with Andrew Bolt. I think it has had a chilling effect. I think it's been a real backstep for our country, actually. And the thing is, it is only protecting the people in the minority. And I honestly believe that since Gough Whitlam was in power and he decided to take over Aboriginal affairs, which isn't really the Commonwealth's responsibility, but I imagine, I've been told at that time, there were serious issues in some of these communities, sewage, water, housing, etc. But seriously, it's been funded for 43 years, but it's funded to fail. It's funded to fail. And when today even I spoke to an Aboriginal woman and she's like, sovereignty this, we've got to go to the UN and all this. I'm like, seriously, after all these native title things go through, and I remind you, Hawke Keating and 6 Aboriginal people, many of them you would know associated with this sort of extreme left, negotiated the Native Title Act, which really gives Aboriginal people no rights. So they feel like there's things that have been, you know, unsolved, when really, I said to her, Australian people have been paying double the money. But the thing is, because this Aboriginal thing has become an untouchable domain, and couple that with the high rates of violence we know about, the organised crime, the abuse of power, people don't feel safe to speak up. And in a way, after they came after me, like, boom, train, I thought, no, you're not going to get me, because my thing is, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't stand up to this, because there are children and women and men who are living in socialist third world conditions, and they shouldn't be. And they're not dumb people, and that's how the socialists treat them, like children. They're always talking on behalf of them, like Paddy, putrid Paddy, I call him. And, you know, he also tried to bully someone who spoke to me, and it just actually ended up at the same time. He rang me and he said, these people are absolutely shocking, and putrid Paddy tries to bully and intimidate, and that's how they use it. And because they're all interconnected, particularly in the university sector, in the arts world, if one speaks up against it, they suffer huge ramifications in terms of their ability to get a job, and because they've been cut off from mainstream Australia, don't have those business networks, etc.
Because he's a university lecturer, Paddy Gibson, as well as a lifelong Marxist Trotskyist activist at UTS, University of Technology, Sydney.
Disgusting. And as you've pointed out, the G20 rights, 2008, is that correct? 2006. There were all those children who were arrested. And do you want someone, like, we've got Aboriginal children for the first time in their life, probably first generation, because they provide some accommodation for students generally, but they incentivise it, right? Coming to these universities and then being spoken to by him. I mean, I listened to his stuff on the intervention. It's absolutely conspiracy theory. Now, I'm going to say something not politically correct. If he was a Muslim, if he was brown, if he had different robes on, he'd be in jail, in my view.
Paddy Gibson.
I looked at that. I looked at a recent thing he said on intervention. He is running us all down, all conspiracy. It just proves, like, this is not conspiracy theory. The proof is there. I mean, they are indoctrinating our kids and they hate Australia. And, you know, what I'm saying to Aboriginal people is you've got to actually step up and be a first-class citizen. But the problem is, school system is so bad. I watched an ABC report, I put it up on my social media, where they've got a video where they're indoctrinating kids on how bad invasion was. So they're everywhere you're going, they're breeding this hatred to Australians, and Aboriginal people are actually quite Australians, and, you know, want the same as everybody else wants.
That's I think the most disturbing aspect of this Marxist infiltration into the Aboriginal community, teaching the young to hate Australia and to hate white people, view them as oppressors as well. And of course, the irony is that this failed rally. This is Paddy Gibson here, and obviously the name Paddy or Patrick. If you look up where that name is most common, but there he is him being arrested by the police there. So he's the apparent leader of Black Lives Matter, this guy.
Yeah. Yep. And what back to the this UTS. I mean, why is Paddy getting a job as a senior lecturer when that job should be really going to someone who has experience in Aboriginal communities, who can actually add something for Aboriginal people, like whether they're black, white or brindle, or who can, contribute meaningfully? They don't want to. There's a cabal there. Absolutely. Heather Goodall, who set up the Land Rights Act in New South Wales when the Rand government came in, they had an Aboriginal land trust, and they kicked off all these great people. It's run quite well. And they set up this state land rights, state land council, where there's all these little land councils, and they're so ineffective. And people look at that and they think, well, this is the government system, and they think, oh, they appoint all these people, well, it's like the white people against us. And I have to point out, no, like there's people in these places that are interconnected. I mean, how can people get jobs as like pro vice chancellors when they don't even have, academic publications which are peer reviewed? This is what's happening. That's what the BLM, the person at Western Sydney, who was trying to get everybody to go into a BLM pledge, and they're ready to get, they want to get Aboriginal people upset and emotional. But it's really cruel because in Australia, we are not a racist country, and the pure fact that can prove it is over 70% of Aboriginal people marry outside.
Yeah, it's a well-established fact, and if you look at the recent census in 2016, the population which identifies as having Aboriginal ancestry has gone up.
Yeah, and there's so many. I mean, I put some stuff up on my social media for people who want to speak up about it. One lady, Tanya Hunter, she was actually 4 generations have been in guard care. And she found she's very Aboriginal, right? But she found her Aboriginal family, and she found this woman who she knew was not Aboriginal. She actually gave up university to pursue her. She went to the US, and these people who gave her the scholarship in Australia, which is funded by the Australian government, wouldn't stop her going, even though she's got no evidence of being Aboriginal. But Tanya rang up the university, I think it was Berkeley, and got in touch with the African American and Native Americans, and they bowed up. But so there's so many Aboriginal people who are trying, and they're writing letters to the government and everything. They know about it because, and in a way it's set up. But my conclusion is they don't want to solve the problem with Aboriginal health, these people who control it. I think it's a really bad thing to say. I actually think they probably like us all dead, because that way they can get access to the land. And as I said, 70% of Australia is going to be under some form of communal title, which when I did a recent talk with Warren Mundine, he confirmed it. And he used to be the CEO of Native Title Services in New South Wales. But this Native Title Act is so crazy, because you can't mine the land yourself, right? You've only got the option to negotiate. And people go to these non-stop meetings and they talk about nothing, right? And compare that to Alaska, where you've got 13 regional Alaskan corporations Nixon government set up in 1972. They turned over $9 billion in revenue in 2017. We're paying double the amount per Aboriginal person, and things are deteriorating. So for me, I've come to the conclusion they want it to. They want it bring us down, victimise us as much as possible. And both governments, Liberal and Labor, have, and I think the Labor Party definitely involved in this, but both of them have really said, oh, it's an Aboriginal issue, I'm not going to touch it. And I think it goes back to that Andrew Bolt case. And my impression of him is he's a wonderful Australian. He's got guts. Thank goodness for people like Andrew Bolt. And I didn't really realise, because my motivation from leaving this Aboriginal community and seeing like a baby died, it really affected me, I think, because people were being lazy and not doing their job properly and all sorts of stuff happened. And my focus was sort of blinkered. I felt if Aboriginal victims got justice, then, you know, they'd feel more a part of Australia. And I just have this sort of think alike. And because I stood up against Pascoe, and Aboriginal tribes who were offended asked me to, and also my mum's a real historian and she's been sidelined because of this stuff, the cabal. You know, they just tried to come after me, called me and everything. You know, this has been the best thing I think that's happened to me, because I do not want to be around liars. And I've never been in part of their Aboriginal industry. And the other thing was, before I got kicked off, I actually got threatened to be kicked off before this in November, when I raised some very serious issues of children killing themselves, lots of children, and children prostituting themselves in a community, a town where there's a very high Aboriginal population. And the person is very well known and was involved with the Uluru Statement process. So I asked for an AFP and a Crime Commission briefing, which I thought was sensible, because I don't want that on my conscience, right? Like embedding anything that was in, you know, I want to make sure the checks and balances are there. And because I know the Crime Commission did the report, they were the best people to brief. And I sent a request to Marcia, and she threatened to kick me off there.
Marcia Langton,
yes,
you're referring to.
I published a letter, and I raised this. I put in there that it's actually connected to the large supply of ice, right, and child prostitution.
Yeah,
yeah. But the thing is, these people raised it with me, and I was actually asked to go to that community by Ken, and I didn't get paid for doing it or anything. I was trying to help something else, and I have a lot of family there, and they had reported it, and you know, nothing has happened as a result. And it's a crime. And unfortunately, in that community, when people speak up, sometimes their houses get firebombed, and that might be hard for people to understand when we're in Australia. But this is the sort of stuff Aboriginal people face.
It is reported in the mainstream media, some of the more horrendous acts of child abuse. There was one recently that was reported that happened in Cape York, but that's just the ones that the media chooses to highlight. Obviously, you've got countless examples of that as well, which shocks a lot of us here in the cities, that that's happening in Australia. That sounds more like something that happens in Afghanistan rather than here. And yeah, meanwhile what we call it at the Unshackled, the Aboriginal superstructure rolls on, and I refer to as a never-ending reconciliation movement, where it's always about the symbolism, whether it be change the date, treaty. We have had the recognised campaign in the Constitution has now turned into the Uluru Statement of from the heart, and the voice to Parliament. It's not designed to end, because then obviously the superstructure stops because it's mission accomplished.
Well, it's supported by the cabal as well, and the person who I've been told, Mark Lieber, who's got a very close connection with Marcia and Noel, and they've had some fluffy pieces in the AFR recently, that he's definitely like Soros's guy in Australia, and this is a bigger plot. I'm sorry to say, I'm convinced, because if they wanted to fix it, they would have fixed it. they actually want things to get worse. This change, all these symbols.
Well, that's what you get led to wonder, because people such as us, we know what needs to be done, but the politicians, they're too scared and cowardly about being criticized by such people and the media, and that it's clear that the policy solutions are there, they're just not pursued.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of blackmail going on with our politicians, money, etc. I mean, it's been documented. Like, how many Chinese spies do we have in here? 30,000. There's 60,000 in the US. I've been quoted. I'm definitely aware of some politicians. I know about it, right? Not going to say now, but because it's ammo, right? But I'm definitely aware that we've got some really big serious issues in Australia right now. And the thing is, I think some of these articles are deliberately put there, right, to be broad sweeping, blaming the Aboriginal community, right? I think it's a technique. So when that article came out, of course, there is like so many people upset, but unfortunately, this entire Aboriginal community that happens. But the thing is, it's not precise enough to be helpful, because there are people who they're aware of. Like, I'm been in Morcania, and they're not followed this matter. They're actually funding a $7.5 million art gallery when the people want to shop, right, by a guy who killed one of the senior women with the butt of his rifle and 2 children, and it's reported. I mean, I'm a lawyer, I'm not going to say it if it's not true. And the women asked me to come because a lot of these people who have gone to the minister and stuff are all like, dubious backgrounds and bullies and thugs. And they're the ones who get into the government. So when you do an article that is like broad sweeping, that says, oh, it's like other people don't care, but I know that there's people who care so deeply about these issues in community. I mean, there's a lot of very strong Aboriginal Christians, despite what they've tried to do, get us, they've burnt churches and everything. But there are a lot of people with, cultural values, strong moral compass but they're finding it difficult to know where to go. And that's what, my foundation, we've been working on, getting people to have a voice and teaching them that the best way that they can, have a voice is to vote, because a lot of Aboriginal people don't vote, because they don't even see the point of it, which is really sad. And hopefully get more Aboriginal people on the ground to meet more non-Aboriginal people, because I've seen so much love from the general public, and also, run for council elections, state elections, and really why do we need another voice? We've got the best democracy, one of the best democracies in the world. People go on boats to try to get here, some of them to infiltrate, but some of them legitimate. That's the reality.
Coming back to, because we are close to 9 p.m, I had a late start, so I don't want to go too late, but just bringing it back to as I described it, the Black Lives Matter Sydney flop, I hope that this can represent a turning point, because, the fact that I'm down here in Melbourne, we're in our second lockdown, and our Black Lives Matter rally had 6 positive cases. 2 were connected to, 2 were residents of those housing towers that had that very hard lockdown. So because our contact tracing has been proven to be so poor, we don't know whether they contracted the virus there, whether they spread it, or what sort of that. But the New South Wales government and police made the right decision in, I'm not sure what your views are on the coronavirus lockdown. That's irrelevant to this discussion, but knowing what happened in Melbourne, just basically standing up to Paddy Gibson and his Marxist buddies that say, no, we've seen what happened in Melbourne. We're on high alert here. doesn't matter what your cause is, this is a threat to public safety. And he was on a media blitz, ranting and raving to any media that would listen, that this is more important than the coronavirus, and we promise to socially distance, and our rally is no more dangerous than a shopping centre. As you see here, when he's being arrested, Paddy Gibson, his mask slips off there. His mouth is right in those police officers' faces there. This whole episode did immense damage to Black Lives Matter movement in Australia, and especially what's happened in Melbourne. A lot of people, normal people, have looked at that Black Lives Matter rally in Melbourne and what it triggered as the beginning of the second wave. That's just the connection that ordinary people have made. So I hope that this represents this flop in Sydney, a turning point.
Well, yeah, I think they're going down in numbers, and it's funny because one of the girls in the BLM, she actually contacted me, but I'm working really hard, like hours and hours, and I've got a group of people now online, and we're really bringing out, unfortunately, I'm so glad you're there, but we're bringing out all the how they're such lies really, and hypocrites. And because I've had more than, and growing up, I mean, my mum's Aboriginal, I've been around it, I'm not trying to come lately. I've seen these people, we're interconnected, so I've got an advantage. And I think people trust me. They don't trust Paddy Gibson. Like, our families are really interconnected, and the average Aboriginal person, I've been getting a huge amount of support offline all over the country. I've got so many messages, I can't keep up with them, because people are just ready to sort of be rid of these people, whether they know, the words, and like, stop. I've been saying to people, stop using sovereignty. It's a brainwashing word. But I think they're waiting for liberation, and that's why Aboriginal people. And I know that Paddy has a few people who are heavily drugs who ends out to bully people, but they are absolutely losing momentum. And I'm going to be speaking to some women soon who've been speaking up independently. They know something's wrong. And also, one of them got sexually abused by someone in BLM. I mean, they are just the most rotten thugs with no moral compass at all. And I said, I've been talking, they're told all this stuff. And I said, you don't need these people to talk for you. You can talk for yourself. Like, they're treating you like you're a dog. And when they get it, I think they will, and that's the thing. But we have to stay extremely vigilant, because these people have plots and subplots, in my view. And I think, one of the ways that we're really going to fight this insurgence, is by the average Aussie and the average Aboriginal Aussie coming together. Because I think in the last 40 years, we've been pulled apart, and, most of us are mixed. And the Aboriginal philosophical framework is one where, we're not really judgmental, and we're quite loving and accepting, because, in our culture, everything's interconnected and related, and it's actually the land that accepts you, or the creator, God, on the earth, not people. And I think we really need to put, like, this is where I'd like the focus, rather than those victims on the ground, which seems to come up, oh, they're on welfare, they're going to get off welfare. Well, everybody gets the same New Start, right? Just forget it. That's a game. It's a pitting game. The real focus is going to be on, why is the ABC promoting fake history, promoting and propaganda, right? Without even questioning it. NITV, a lot of the people work there, they came after me, are actually writing for the CPA, Communist Party of Australia, as well.
Yeah, they've been behind some of the Sydney BLM rallies as well, literally carrying the communist hammer and sickle flag.
Oh my goodness, I'd like to see that. I'll put it up online. I would love to see that. But the thing is, the Australian, it's good if like what you're doing is fabulous, because we've got the numbers in Australia. We've got the numbers. It's just a matter of, and you were quite optimistic about it. I'm not sure, but we've just got to, because the government is failing us, absolutely failing us. And I call the minister, I call Tian, Turdy Tian, and I call, sorry, but you got to have your pet names, and I call the something. But the thing is, I'm highlighting it, but why are we letting the ABC, SBS be the groomers of our kids, for goodness sake? Like, it's okay to have a different view, but I think I was looking back on, Sir Robert Menzies and his push to ban the Communist Party. And I think once we get more out, we've really got to look at, don't want to curb freedom of speech, but they want to destroy us. And what's going to happen if, I don't even know how our laws are working out, whether citizens can defend, but definitely they want to create chaos. They want to destroy our society. And from what I've seen of the communist world of the last 100 years, I've got to know this researching 1 million deaths plus. I mean, and what are they doing in China now? We don't want that in this country. We've got to fight,
Well, as the people have referred to, the re-lockdown in Melbourne and the first lockdown in Victoria, this is basically the free trial of communism, where we're under basic house arrest. Those residents of the public housing towers, they were under literal house arrest. They weren't allowed to leave for any reason. So we've got 3 weeks to go of this lockdown to get our freedoms back. But yeah, I am optimistic that there are more waking up, and yeah, I'm certainly love to have you back on again soon, for because obviously you've got lots and lots to say, and certainly I'd love to do another show with you in the near future as well.
Thank you so much. And it would be really good to map this out, because I think, like they say, from the lightness, like darkness comes light. And I think, like people said, gee, you're brave. But I actually think the more we speak about it, the less dangerous these people are. It just seems that way. So I worked for a senior counsel who specialised in defamation, and I'm going to be taking my own case on. But the thing is, this is a very important thing, and I'm so glad that you're there, because it seems like, that recent article with Lydia Thorpe, I wouldn't have known that stuff about her. I just read it today, and I put it on Twitter, and people were like, oh my goodness. I mean, I don't think there's any excuse for going that hard to support a pedophile society, like a pedophile support group. I just can't see
Lucas Roses, who writes these exposés. When I've had him on the show before, he just gets so angry that he's writing these, and the mainstream media, even the so-called conservatives, they're not mentioning the extremist links of these people when they're so obvious, and they even have the communist flags at their rallies, whether it be BLM or Extinction Rebellion or climate justice rallies or whatever. It is literally hiding in plain sight the real agenda of these people.
They're not mentioning it. Are they worried? Like, are they? Is it so much infiltration from communist countries, particularly China?
Oh, it's the journalists themselves. They're very left these days, and also very scared of the... I mean, if you look at that, was it Barry Weiss, who resigned from the New York Times, basically said that Twitter has become the ultimate editor of the paper, and I would say that's probably the case for a lot of the news outlets now and the various other rags online, that they just react to, and you know what a Twitter pylon is like. These mainstream media journalists get easily intimidated by it.
Yeah, well, we've got to start intimidating them the other way, because I'm going to definitely share these things more, because, you know, with the amount of child abuse, I mean, I just think that most decent Aboriginal people would be absolutely disgusted.
Well, all of us would be disgusted by it.
Well, and there's more about her that people have contacted me, and she actually blocked me because I mentioned Lake Tyres. And I mentioned that all these people became homeless. They got them to sign.
Who is this? Was this Lydia Thorpe blocked you?
Yeah. They got them to sign a new lease, and these with Jeff Clark there, mind you. You know, great Jeff.
Yes. Know all about him.
Spill the beans on her more, and she's been part of people who've had power and influence and voice, and they haven't done anything. And it's interesting because I noticed that Larissa Barrett, Harvard. And her stepmother was Harvard too. Her stepmother was a fake Aboriginal. That's you know, that's established. And the one who took Bolt to court, right? She's now trotting around with Pascoe and Thorpe, talking about a national treaty. Now they always want a national treaty or a national voice, and I think this is absolutely part of a scheme to try to, you know, undermine Australia's freehold land title. And then I looked at the CPA policies, and it says it. It says it. It says we do not want Aboriginal people to have any private property, right? And since the Gurindji Wave Hill, they've been dominating. That was 1953, I think. 52. They've been dominating, but particularly when Rand came in, and, you know, Paul Keating with his dubious contacts as well. But the thing is, they are using Aboriginal people, I'm convinced, to plan some sort of court thing with Anna Block-Lever advising them. And I've been told by senior people in security security intelligence, because they just went boom on me, and I was told that they had a big plot with Pascoe. And if you look at it, you can tell because I was seeing things like, you know, so Pascoe was saying, oh, you know, they're hiding Aboriginal culture. They're saying it's not sophisticated, right? And Pascoe compares Aboriginalism, which isn't a word, to communism in his speeches, right? And so the average Aussie would have been really pissed off and said, well, you guys invented a stick, right? And seriously, if you think about it, there were no hoofed animals, and there's a correlation between hoofed animals and the wheel and technological development. It's got nothing to do with people's brains. Like, we're not into, well, I'm not, these other cabal people are probably into eugenics. But the thing is, that would have created a real race war. So they actually told me I stopped this big plot. And it was I literally had 6 PR companies on my LinkedIn more look at me. And then the next day it was like, you're a Nazi, you're this. And you know what? They had all these fake Aboriginal profiles because I know how people speak. And it's not that hard to find who their families are because there's a few established. I knew that they were just rotten to the core. But it's so interesting because I actually think that would have been Mabo 2.2, because Pascoe, you know, would have claimed another argument, but it wouldn't have been for the benefit of Aboriginal people. They would have bloody taken it over, mined the hell out of it. That's why, you know, and just pillaged and raped, literally, and murdered us. And well, I really hope, all I can say is really hope Donald Trump wins.
Beaver Anti-Bullying, one of our regular commenters, has said, Tim, this is this guest is dropping the most red pills of any guest you've had on. So, well, I think I've said that to you privately, but the difference with you is you basically know how the inside works, and when you spill the beans, the beans are pretty spicy, to use the analogy.
I was a very good prosecutor as well, and I was a good defense lawyer, and I like to have, you know, to be honest, this is like running a trial for me. I am running a marathon. I am working, you know, like this is the thing. Trump didn't have all the money. did he? Like, he didn't have the money, but we can outwit them, because when you're a liar, right? You're a liar and you're full of it and you think you're so cocky, you drop the ball all the time. And they're the crumbs that you've been picking up, right? You've been picking up these crumbs. What we've got to do, I'd love to, I'm happy to work with anyone to map this out so we can expose it and take our country back, because they seriously are like seditious. I'm worried. I know that the CIA's infiltrated. I have no idea how much we are here, but it's certainly extremely weird how, when I wrote to Peter Dutton, right, about Pascoe, this Paige Taylor is definitely a plant in the Australian. She's like a PR agent for Wyatt, like unbelievable. She really spun the piece. What happened was she held on to this Dutton letter I gave her. I was very naive, thought all these journalists in Australia would be okay. And she released it. And just before that, I'd written to the editor. The major editor was on leave, and I said, I do not want you to publish the piece. I don't trust you. You've done a few things to me, and I do not trust you to write a proper piece. After I told that, she published it, but they published it to say that Bruce was fighting the bushfires. It was like a spin, right? But I knew from other people he was filming for that bloody Dark Emu series.
That's the one that the ABC is commissioning.
They spun it, and then they did it like I wanted to set up a Nazi type database, but actually, and I've published the letter online, I wrote to Peter Dutton, is that I wanted to get experts together with elders. And the reason why I wanted to do that is I know that elders are hardcore. They do not want people, who would want someone pretending they're related to them? I mean, it's like, it's really insulting to your heritage. And a lot of them are like having health problems. They're so stressed about it, to be honest. I get calls. They think because I'm a lawyer, I can solve everything. And I'm like, no, I'm humble. I've just got to look a lot of things up. But the thing is, all I asked Peter Dutton for was elders with experts to talk about the issue, right? Just talk about the issue, because it's obvious there's fakes. Well, they hammered me, and then I've been writing to a lot of ministers. I got one response from TN.
You might be on some sort of, because I have heard from former politicians that they're able to filter emails, certain types of emails.
Oh, also, you know what else? There's a star chamber. Do you know about the star chamber?
Oh yeah, I know the expression, yes.
Well, there's a star chamber in the Liberal Party who decide who the staffers are, right? Where the staffers go.
So, yeah. I don't want to get too.
But anyway, you know that Photius is running New South Wales Liberal Party.
That's what a lot of people have speculated.
Puppet. And then you've got Don Harwin, who I think's got a huge amount of influence. He's, broke the COVID stuff, and
well, he got out of the fine, yes.
But so anyway, it could be the staffers but it could also be that it was an operational decision, because they knew what was being planned and they didn't want it to follow.
I think my point of view is it's just cowardice all round, both whether it be Liberal or Labor, and certainly the political class. Well, they need to grow a spine. I think.
Case afterwards, that was very interesting, because they tried to spin that too. Basically said about those refugees, like the people who were claiming to be Aboriginal.
Oh yes, this High Court case I remember earlier this year.
After that was very interesting how all these things happen. But they basically said it's the government's role to set up a framework. And my view is we should get rid of the whole social services sector and have what you have in Alaskans, and people can hold their own genealogy, and they're like shareholders then. So if they let in these bloody people, that's independence, right? But again, elders have been cut out, so I don't want to make any decisions for them. It's disrespectful. And I know how hardcore they'll be getting out the DNA and everything. They think these other One Nation's hardcore. They want to meet some of these elders. But the thing is, it's a loophole now. But the High Court basically said, that's a government responsibility. But then these media people saying, oh, the activist High Court, blah, blah, blah. But that's not how I read it. But it is an extreme loophole in our country where people could say, well, I'm offended, I'm Aboriginal. And because people they've been cut off. And I was telling you where my mum's family is in Taree. There used to be called Sunrise Station. A farmer gave it, actually. I saw my ancestor, but it was a farmer in a previous talk. And in the 70s, they went up the North Coast, these activists, and burnt all the churches. And the people in Taree used to have a combined church service. And in another place, a woman from Rockhampton was telling me at Sherbrooke, the Aboriginal people were literally told they're not allowed to be Christians and they have to completely
that sounds abhorrent, absolutely abhorrent. As I said, I know you've got a lot to say, but I would like to end it now.
The more people know, the more chance we've got to unite. But we've got plenty of time to discuss this. I'm sure as time goes on and both of us put the little pieces together, and good on you. Amazing work. I mean, you're the only one. I had no idea about Marcia's links until I stumbled on your articles like a godsend.
Well, they've been trying to beat you into submission since the end of last year, since you first pretty much blew the whistle on Pasco. And we should also credit Quadrant magazine as well for doing a lot of exposés on Dark Emu as well. But you're still standing and more determined than ever. That's what I'm noticing with activists all around the world. They're just trying to, that cancel culture, as it's called, people are just becoming more determined by it and becoming uncancelable. And you're definitely one of those uncancellables. You won't be going away.
Oh, I won't be going away. And the thing is, the light has to be brought on it, because Australians are suffering, and we're a beautiful country. And, we're the best country in the world, and people are using us because of our mineral resources, in my view, which is so ironic, because these people are meant to be environmentalists, and they really, either they're the biggest useful idiots going, or, and how dare people think that they've got a right to undermine our democracy? I mean, how isn't this bloody terrorism? Anyway, I don't know.
We should definitely, because we've touched on it briefly tonight, do a whole episode on exposing Dark Emu. But we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Josephine, for coming on. Take care, and I don't need to give you any further encouragement to be tough. As the saying goes, you're as tough as nails.
Oh, thank you. But still smiling, and still, you've got to enjoy these people are the ones who should be upset and angry and crying, and they're going to be crying, because I'm really going to we should make sure the ones who have wanted to destroy our country are locked up, and locked up, the book thrown at them, proper prosecutions, because they have just been getting away with this way too much, and they should be scared. And I said that on my original Bolt thing. I said, I'm all cards in, right? All the way. And the thing is, it's all in the light. So, they haven't got very many places to move. And actually, I'm hardly anyway. I've got a mob, and I haven't asked for it on Twitter, and they just follow if anyone says anything. And these trolls now block us because they can't handle it.
Yeah.
So they're just weak people.
Anyway. Have a good night. We'll speak again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
And that concludes tonight's show. It turned out the stars aligned, and it was an extremely epic show. First with Lance, and then with Josephine. Fingers crossed, Unclickables will be back tomorrow night. David Hiscock, editor of the XYZ, is still taking a sabbatical. So he's going to be away for another week, but we will we'll have some good contributors, panelists for tomorrow night. So 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time on the Unclickables YouTube and D Live. Then rounding out the week, Trad Tasman Talk 6 p.m. Melbourne time Friday on the Unshackled's YouTube channel. Keep checking out theunshackled.net. We have as discussed with my interview with Josephine following the Paddy Gibson BLM flop as well. And we've also published some new essays as well. So stay tuned for those. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe, stay free, stay sane.
Thanks for tuning in to Wilmsfront. Visit timwilms.com or Rational Rise TV to view the archive of episodes. And keep visiting theunshackled.net to view all our shows. And to keep up with the latest real news and analysis.